Alright, stop scrolling. This is the one. Go to sleep. The complete Roman Empire saga. 400 years, all in one place. I've spent over 2 years of my life crafting this series, all by myself. Over 20 hours of content, bringing you the ultimate chronicle of Rome. From the golden age of Augustus to the peak under Trajan, through the chaos of the 3rd century crisis. Well-seeded coalition-s reforms, constant on its new capital, and the final split after Theodosius. This was a massive undertaking. If you appreciate the effort, a like and subscribe means the world. No time. Hit save for later, so you don't lose it. Now let's begin. Welcome to the Roman MP. Glory to Greece, and grandeur to Rome. For 2,000 years, this phrase has echoed through history. But what does grandeur truly mean? Does it mean that a civilization, born from a small city-state on the Italian peninsula, would eventually turn the entire Mediterranean Sea into its private lake? Does it mean that the eagle standards of the Roman legions would fly over the cold highlands of Scotland, the scorching sands of the Sahara, and the fertile plains of the Euphrates River? Or perhaps it refers to something more enduring. The fact that our modern legal systems, our architectural styles, our alphabet, and even our very understanding of concepts like the state and the citizen can all trace their roots back to this ancient empire. Rome was more than just a place on a map, it was an idea. A grand idea about order, power, and civilization itself. But like all great things, it was destined to fade. Today, you cannot find the Roman Empire on any map. The giant that once ruled the known world has been slumbering for over 1,500 years. The question everyone asks is, why did Rome fall? But perhaps a more interesting and more revealing question is this: how did Rome survive and thrive for so long? How did it, time and time again, pull itself back from the brink of chaos? In this video, we will embark on a deep dive into the most glorious 200 years of the Roman Empire, from its very foundation to its dazzling, sun-drenched peak. We will witness how a political genius forged an empire from the ashes of a republic, using both iron will and masterful deception. We will watch as a dynasty of madmen and murderers pushes that empire to the edge of insanity. And we will stand with a philosopher-king as he contemplates the nature of existence while fighting plagues and barbarians on a frozen frontier. This is not just a list of emperors. This is the story of how power is built, how it is abused, and how it is remade. It is the story of a civilization that, at the very height of its glory, quietly planted the seeds of its own destruction. Prepare yourself. Let us journey back to an age of both unparalleled greatness and unspeakable madness. Our story begins not in glory, but in ruins. The Rome of the 1st century BC was not the majestic republic of our imagination. It was a failed state, torn apart by nearly a century of brutal civil war. Marius, Sulla, Pompey, Caesar. Behind these legendary names lay a reality of bloodshed, betrayal, and a relentless, soul-crushing struggle for power. When Julius Caesar fell bleeding on the floor of the Senate, his 18-year-old grand-nephew and adopted son, Gaius Octavius, was studying in Greece. To the powerful men in Rome, he was a nobody, a sickly, politically inexperienced boy. No one could have imagined that this teenager would not only avenge Caesar, but would end an entire era of history and begin a new one. Octavianus' greatest weapon was not an army, but a name: Caesar. Returning to Rome, he rallied Caesar's loyal veterans and public support by presenting himself as the son of Caesar. But he was far more cunning and patient than any of the warlords who came before him. After forming the second triumvirate with Mark Antony and Lepidus and brutally eliminating their political enemies, he didn't make Caesar's fatal mistake of rushing to be king. Instead, he played the long game. For over a decade, he waged a masterful war of propaganda and, eventually, military might against his chief rival, Mark Antony, who had famously fallen under the spell of the Egyptian queen, Cleopatra. By 31 BC, at the naval battle of Actium, Octavian's forces crushed the combined fleet of Antony and Cleopatra. With their suicides, the entire Roman world lay at Octavian's feet. The question on everyone's mind was, what would he do now? Declare himself king? History had taught him that was a death sentence. And so Octavian staged one of the most brilliant political performances in human history. In 27 BC, he walked into the Senate and solemnly declared, "I give back the Republic. I transfer all power to the Senate and the people of Rome." The senators were overjoyed. They believed their cherished republic had been restored. To honor his selfless act, they bestowed upon him a new, unprecedented title, Augustus, meaning the revered or the majestic. They also graciously granted him control over the most important frontier provinces and, therefore, the majority of Rome's legions, so he could protect the state. Do you see the genius of it? By pretending to give up power, Augustus legally acquired more power than any king had ever dreamed of. He kept the old republican offices, the consuls, the tribunes, the senate, but he made himself the sole, indispensable core of the entire system. He called himself the princeps or first citizen. It was a masterful disguise, a monarchy dressed in the robes of a republic. For the next 40 years, Augustus completely reshaped Rome. Militarily, he transformed the chaotic, loyal their general armies into a professional, standing army loyal only to him, stationed permanently on the frontiers. And in Rome itself, he created the Praetorian Guard, an elite force that served as his personal bodyguards, but also as a constant, menacing reminder of who held the real power. He built an efficient bureaucracy, bypassing the corrupt old aristocracy, by promoting talented men from the equestrian class and even former slaves, known as freedmen, to manage the empire's finances and daily affairs. Culturally, he sponsored great poets like Virgil and Horace to write epic works that glorified Rome and his own reign. Virgil's Aeneid was a masterpiece of propaganda, tracing Rome's origins to the heroes of Troy and giving the empire a divine destiny. He famously boasted that he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble, transforming the capital into a worthy symbol of its own greatness. The era of peace he ushered in would be known for 2 centuries as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. But this great architect had his dark side. His obsession with establishing a blood dynasty led to a lifetime of personal tragedy. One by one, his chosen heirs died: his nephew Marcellus, his trusted general Agrippa, his grandsons Gaius and Lucius. This string of misfortunes left him politically desperate and personally heartbroken, forcing him to finally, reluctantly, name his stepson Tiberius as his successor. And on the frontiers of his vast empire, a catastrophic defeat would haunt him for the rest of his life. In 9 AD, in the dense, dark Teutoburg forest of Germania, 3 of Rome's finest legions were laid into an ambush by a German chief unnamed Arminius, who had been raised in Rome. The legions were annihilated. It is said that upon hearing the news, the elderly Augustus would bang his head against the wall, crying out, "Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions." That defeat drew a line in blood on the map of Europe. The Rhine River would become the permanent frontier between the Roman world and what they considered the unconquered wilderness. In 14 AD, at the age of 77, Augustus died. His final words were reportedly, "Have I played my part well? Then applaud as I exit." The applause was well earned. The foundation he built for the Roman Empire was so strong that even a succession of deeply flawed, and sometimes outright insane, emperors could not completely derail it. If the reign of Augustus was a carefully directed masterpiece, the reigns of his next 4 successors were a chaotic and bloody family drama, filled with paranoia, debauchery, conspiracy, and murder. First, King Tiberius. He was a brilliant and accomplished general, but a gloomy, suspicious, and deeply reluctant emperor. He despised the political hypocrisy of Rome, had a terrible relationship with the Senate. Finally, broken by the deaths of his own heirs and the constant political intrigue, he made a shocking decision. He abandoned the city of Rome and retired to the isolated, cliff-minus-top villas of the island of Capri. From there, he ruled the vast empire by messenger. This created a dangerous power vacuum in Rome, which was eagerly filled by the ambitious commander of the Praetorian Guard, Sejanus. For years, Sejanus ran a reign of terror in the city, eliminating his rivals and positioning himself to seize the throne. But at the last possible moment, a secret letter from Tiberius arrived in the Senate, exposing the plot and leading to Sejanus's dramatic downfall and execution. Tiberius, however, never set foot in Rome again. It was during Tiberius's distant rule, in the remote province of Judea, that a carpenter named Jesus of Nazareth was crucified. At the time, it was a minor event in a faraway land. No one could have possibly predicted that the followers of this man would, 3 centuries later, conquer the Roman Empire from within. After Tiberius, the throne passed to his grand minus nephew, Caligula, whose nickname meant Little Boots. At first, the people of Rome were ecstatic, believing they had a vibrant young emperor. They soon discovered they may have crowned a madman. The stories of Caligula's insanity are legendary. He allegedly planned to appoint his favorite horse, Incitatus, as consul. He ordered his soldiers to collect seashells on the shores of Gaul as spoils of the ocean. He engaged in incestuous relationships with his sisters and demanded to be worshipped as a living god. Historians still debate whether he was genuinely insane, or if his bizarre actions were a form of twisted political theater, designed to humiliate the aristocracy he so despised. Whatever the truth, his reign was a terrifying spectacle. In 41 AD, a group of Praetorian officers, no longer able to tolerate the madness, cornered him in a palace corridor and stabbed him to death. In the ensuing chaos, soldiers found a man trembling behind a curtain, fearing for his life. It was Caligula's uncle, Claudius, lame, prone to stammering, and long regarded as the family fool. He was mockingly proclaimed the new emperor by the guards. But this idiot emperor proved to be a surprisingly capable and diligent administrator. He reformed the justice system, invested in public works, and, most importantly, succeeded where even Julius Caesar had failed. He launched the successful conquest of Britain. Yet, this competent ruler was famously unlucky in his marriages. He was easily manipulated by his wives and freedmen, and his end was a classic Roman tragedy. He was likely murdered by his final wife, who was also his ambitious niece, Agrippina the Younger, with a dish of poisoned mushrooms. She did it to clear the way for her own son to take the throne. That boy would become the most infamous emperor in all of Roman history, Nero. Nero saw himself not as a ruler, but as a supreme artist. He believed he was a world-class singer, poet, and chariot racer. He neglected the affairs of state to go on performance tours in Greece, forcing audiences to applaud his mediocre talents. But his artistic pretensions were matched by his monstrous cruelty. To secure his power, he had his own domineering mother murdered. To marry his mistress, he forced his wife to commit suicide. Then, in 64 AD, a catastrophic fire broke out in Rome, raging for over a week and destroying vast swaths of the city. Rumors spread that Nero had started the fire himself, and had watched it burn from his palace, strumming his lyre, singing about the fall of Troy. To deflect the public's fury, Nero needed a scapegoat. He found one in a small, secretive, and widely misunderstood religious sect in the city, the Christians. He unleashed a horrific persecution, blaming them for the fire and subjecting them to gruesome public executions. Nero's tyranny and extravagance eventually bankrupted the state and alienated the military. Legions in Gaul, Spain, and Africa rose in revolt. The Senate declared him a public enemy. Abandoned by everyone, Nero fled the city and, with the help of a slave, took his own life. His final words were a testament to his narcissism. "What an artist dies in me." With Nero's death, the bloodline of Augustus was extinguished. The Roman Empire, for the first time since its creation, was without a master. It was about to face its first great test. Nero's suicide opened Pandora's box. The year 16 AD is known as the Year of the Four Emperors, a period of bloody civil war where the throne of Rome became a prize to be seized by the strongest army. This chaotic year revealed what the historian Tacitus called the secret of the empire, that an emperor could be made elsewhere than in Rome. Power no longer resided in the Senate or in a noble bloodline, it resided with the legions. The elderly Galba, the ambitious Otho, and the gluttonous Vitellius rose and fell in rapid succession, each leaving a trail of blood and chaos as their armies fought for control of the capital. The ultimate victor emerged from the east. His name was Vespasian. He was a pragmatic, no-nonsense soldier from a humble Italian family, not the high Roman aristocracy. When the civil war broke out, he was in the middle of suppressing a massive Jewish revolt in Judea. His legions proclaimed him emperor, and armies loyal to him marched on Italy from the Danube in the east. They defeated Vitellius's forces, and Vespasian secured the throne, bringing the bloody civil war to an end. Vespasian's rise was a turning point. He was a commoner, a new man, and he brought a new, practical style of governance. He immediately set about restoring the state's finances, which had been ruined by Nero's excess in the civil war. He famously introduced a tax on the collection of urine from public latrines, which was used in tanning and laundering. When his son Titus complained that the money was stinky, Vespasian held a gold coin to his nose and delivered the immortal line, "Money does not stink." He used this restored wealth to begin construction on one of the most iconic buildings in human history, the Flavian Amphitheater, better known today as the Colosseum. Built on the site of Nero's extravagant private lake, it was a powerful political statement, a gift from a practical, commoner emperor back to the people of Rome. Erasing the memory of a tyrant, Vespasian successfully stabilized the empire and founded the Flavian dynasty. When he died, power passed peacefully to his two sons, Titus and Domitian. Titus was beloved for his generosity, but his short reign was marked by two infamous disasters: another great fire in Rome, and in 79 AD, the cataclysmic eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which instantly buried the bustling cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum under a thick blanket of volcanic ash. After Titus's early death, his younger brother, Domitian, took the throne. Domitian was an efficient but autocratic ruler. He strengthened the economy and secured the frontiers, but he ruled with an iron fist and had an openly hostile relationship with the Senate, demanding to be addressed as Lord and God. His tyrannical style created many enemies, and in 96 AD, he was assassinated in a palace conspiracy, bringing the Flavian dynasty to an end. Though short-lived, the Flavianese had pulled the empire back from the brink. They had proven that a man did not need to be a blue-blooded aristocrat to rule Rome effectively. The path to power was now open to men of talent and military might, wherever they came from, and Rome was about to enter its most celebrated age. The 18th-century historian Edward Gibbon famously wrote that if a man were called to fix the period in the history of the world during which the condition of the human race was most happy and prosperous, he would, without hesitation. This was the era of the five good emperors: Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius. Under their guidance, the Roman Empire reached its absolute zenith of power, stability, and prosperity. This era began with a clever political solution. After Domitian's assassination, the elderly and childless Senator Nerva was chosen as a safe candidate for emperor. Lacking military support, he made a brilliant move. He adopted the most powerful and respected general in the empire, Trajan, as his son and heir. This act established a new precedent, later idealized as the adoptive system. The emperor would choose his successor not based on blood, but on merit, selecting the most capable man in the empire to follow him. In theory, this ensured a succession of elite, highly qualified rulers. Trajan was the first emperor born outside of Italy, hailing from Spain. He was the consummate soldier minus emperor, a leader his men would follow anywhere. The Senate bestowed upon him the title Optimus Princeps, the best ruler. He launched Rome's last great wave of conquest, most famously leading to campaigns against the kingdom of Dacia in modern Day Romania. The vast quantities of gold he brought back funded an unprecedented building boom in Rome. To commemorate his victory, he erected Trajan's Column, a magnificent monument whose spiraling frieze tells the story of the war like a graphic novel carved in stone. After securing the northern frontier, Trajan turned east, defeating Rome's age-old rival, the Parthian Empire. His legions marched all the way to the Persian Gulf. In the year 117 AD, the Roman Empire reached its largest territorial extent in history. But upon Trajan's death, his successor, Hadrian, another Spaniard, made a stunning reversal. He immediately abandoned most of Trajan's newly conquered eastern territories. Why? Hadrian was a pragmatist and a realist. He understood that the empire was dangerously overstretched. The cost of defending these new, remote frontiers would far outweigh any benefits. He fundamentally shifted Roman grand strategy from limitless expansion to permanent, fortified consolidation. Hadrian spent more than half of his reign touring every province of the empire. In northern Britain, he commissioned the construction of Hadrian's Wall, a massive stone barrier that stretched from coast to coast, marking the permanent northern boundary of the Roman world. He was also a passionate admirer of Greek culture and a brilliant amateur architect, famously rebuilding the Pantheon in Rome with its breathtaking, record-setting concrete dome. After Hadrian came Antoninus Pius. His 23-year reign was the most peaceful in all of Roman history. So little happened that historical records for his rule are remarkably sparse. The fact that there was nothing to report was his greatest achievement. He was the perfect caretaker, calmly and competently managing the vast machinery of the empire at its most peaceful moment. The final, and most famous, of the good emperors was Marcus Aurelius. He was a Stoic philosopher, a man who would have preferred a quiet life of study and contemplation. But fate made him the most powerful man in the world and forced him to confront some of the gravest crises the empire had yet faced. Almost his entire reign was spent on the northern frontier, fighting grueling wars against invading Germanic tribes. But a far deadlier enemy had infiltrated the empire. Returning soldiers from the east brought with them a devastating pandemic, known as the Antonine Plague, likely a form of smallpox. It raged for over a decade, killing millions, perhaps as much as a quarter of the empire's population, and shattering its economy and social fabric. It was in the midst of this unrelenting storm of war, plague, and political betrayal that Marcus Aurelius, in his campaign, Tent at Night, wrote a series of personal reflections in Greek. They would become one of the most beloved works of philosophy ever written, the Meditations. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This philosopher minus king, armed with the resilience of Stoic philosophy, shouldered the immense burden of a suffering empire. Through sheer force of will, he held it all together. But beneath the gleaming marble surface of this golden age, fatal cracks were already spreading. First, the celebrated adoptive system was not a system at all, but a historical accident. It worked only because Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, and Antoninus Pius had no biological sons who survived to adulthood. What would happen when a good emperor had a son of his own? Second, the immense gap between the rich and the desperately poor remained a chronic problem. While the elite enjoyed a life of unimaginable luxury, the vast majority of the empire's population were subsistence farmers whose lives were brutal, short, and completely disconnected from the grandeur of Rome. Third, the unity of the empire was, in many ways, an illusion. A deep cultural divide always existed between the Latin-speaking West and the Greek-speaking East. Beyond the legions and the currency, there was no single, unifying Roman identity. And finally, long years of peace had eroded the martial spirit of the Roman citizenry. The army became increasingly reliant on recruits from the provinces and, eventually, from the barbarian tribes living along the frontiers. All of these ticking time bombs would detonate the moment Marcus Aurelius died. The grateful Asa for King, the man who preached treason and duty, made one catastrophic, emotional mistake. He did not choose the most capable man to succeed him. Instead, he broke the chain of adoption and named his own biological son as his heir Commodus. Commodus was everything his father was not. He was a vain, cruel, and lazy narcissist who cared nothing for governing. He saw himself as the reincarnation of the demigod Hercules and scandalized Rome by entering the gladiatorial arena to fight, a spectacle considered utterly beneath the dignity of an emperor. He abandoned his father's wars, squandered the treasury, and ruled through terror. The year 180 AD, the death of Marcus Aurelius and the accession of Commodus, is the moment that Edward Gibbon chose to begin his monumental history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. The Golden Age was over. What followed was another bloody civil war, a military dictatorship under the Severan dynasty, and finally, the near-total collapse of the Roman world in the 50-year period known as the crisis of the 3rd century. But that is a story for our next video. From the genius of Augustus to the madness of Nero, from the pragmatism of Vespasian to the stoicism of Marcus Aurelius, these first 200 years of the Roman Empire tell a timeless story of human ambition, folly, and resilience. If you are interested in what happened next, how Rome survived the hell of the 3rd century, and how great emperors like Diocletian and Constantine would radically remake the empire to save it, then be sure to subscribe to Sleepy History and turn on notifications. My channel already has a complete series covering the later Roman Empire, including deep dives into the crisis of the 3rd century, the Tetrarchy, the Constantinian dynasty, and the Theodosian dynasty. You can find them all on my channel page. Thank you for spending this hour with me on this incredible journey. I'm Sleepy History, and I'll see you in the next video.